Hi everyone, I am making this video to show everybody how to make this style of hat on a circular knitting machine. This hat design is not my own. I just have seen this hat style around and seems to be pretty popular, and I just wanted to see if I could develop a pattern for the circular knitting machine. The yarn that I've used to make this hat with is just this Karen Simply Soft yarn. Again, from Michael's. I think I got it on sale, so I'll be using that. It's like a light worsted weight, I guess, and it works pretty good in the machine. It says it's a medium, so that's the info on this yarn. So again, we're going to be making this hat, which has a knit one, purl one, turned under brim. So it's not a completely doubled hat like a lot of your sock hats are. And then we're going to knit, this is 24 rows and then turned under. And then we're going to knit 5 rows. And then we're going to turn the work inside out, put it back on the machine, and that'll create a purl for 6 rows. And then again, we're going to take it off the machine, flip it, and then do another 6 rows, take it off, flip it, do another 6 rows, take it off, flip it. So back and forth. And then this last section, I did 12 rows and then just did a regular kind of gathered closure on the top for that. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. The most difficult part is just getting used to taking it off the machine, flipping it inside out. And then another key point, when you flip it inside out, you have to reverse the direction that you're going. You'll be able to see, and I'll show you when we get going, that you just want to follow the line that your yarn is going to take. You don't want to go back, because then you'll be basically knitting a flat hat that you'll have to sew up, and we don't want to do that. We want to take a finished hat off of the machine. At least I do. So, all right, that is the introduction, and I'm going to get to it and show you guys how to do it on the machine. So, first thing you want to do is cast on your usual cast on with just some waste yarn here. Have to wait on me to untangle it. Okay. So again, just thread the machine, continuing on. I stopped right there, right before my black beginning. And I just put the new yarn on my black, and then I'm gonna thread it through the loosest tension down here on the last. And we're gonna knit, and we're gonna knit 24 rows. Okay, I have knit my 24 rows now of just the regular knit pattern, and now what we want to do is go through and do a knit 1, purl 1 all the way around, or knit 2, purl 2, or however you want to do it for whatever style you want. But I just did a knit 1, purl 1 on the hat that I did. Okay, I'm back now. We've got our knit 1, purl 1 all the way around. Your machine should basically look like this at this point. So all of the stitches are in the little hook down there. and ready for the next step. If we were just going to continue knitting, we would just continue knitting, and the action of the machine would take care of itself and make it all work correctly. But we want to turn this edge up and put it over the hooks so that we'll have a doubled, a turned under brim. So how we do that is you are going to want to start with your first needle. And a big thing here is to make sure that you keep all of these stitches in the little hook, and there's going to be a double stitch in each one of these hooks before we're done. There'll be nothing on these little black knobs down here, the little black keepers. So I'll start with my first black stitch. I'm going to follow that all the way up to here, and I'm just going to grab this first bar right there. So you can see we followed the stitch from the hook here all the way, and we got to put the first blue bar, which is down here, not your waste yarn bar, on there. You got to put the bar for your hat that you're using. So that's going to be that one, and we're just going to slip it over the needle, and you can see there you've got 2 loops now in the hook of that. You just want to leave them in the hook. It's the easiest way to do it. The machine will take care of it on the coming back around. So the next one is going to be on our purl side, and so you can follow that down. Try to follow it down with you guys here, and it's just gonna be right here, this next one there, and we're gonna put it on the machine. The crochet hook works really well for this. We'll advance the machine, keep it where you guys can see it. So now we're on another knit row, so you can see this other knit row here, and we're going to take that bar and put it on there. Now we're on what would be a purl on this side, knit on this side. Take that bar, advance it, put it on there. Okay, so do that all the way around, and I'll meet you right back here, and we'll continue knitting the hat. Okay, so here we are back again. You should now have all of your stitches placed on your needles all the way around so that you now have a doubled up brim. Again, it should look pretty similar to the last step. All of the stitches need to be just on the hooks and not around the little black keepers. No sense in doing all that right now because the machine will take care of that for you. So we've got 2 stitches on each hook. The last live stitch and then the very first stitch of the hat from the brim, and that's where we're at now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to knit 5 rounds. So you can advance it to where you'll start again. In this case it's my black needle, and you can see the working into the yarn is going that way, and we'll just advance it, making sure that all of the stitches before we start stay right there. We don't want them to slide down because when it comes back around it'll pop them off if it slides down on the black things at this point. But what you do want is all of your new needles coming around, like this one, you want to pop it down below that little knob right there, because that knob is going to make sure those stitches get pushed down on the little black keepers, and the new yarn goes in between them to create the knit stitch. So that's what you want to do on this step, is just make sure as it's coming around that you keep pushing your work down so that it will go onto the little keepers where it's supposed to. So we'll go ahead, I've got that stitch pushed down. The stitch before it is still above that little knob right there. It's still above. We want that last stitch of the doubled up round to stay right there in that little hook. We don't want it to get pushed down. So now we'll slowly advance and just keep making sure that you push all of those down. So you can see as it goes around now, the machine has done what it's supposed to do, and it's pushed those two loops onto the little keepers so that the working yarn can now go through those two loops. So we're just going to do that all the way around. It's on the two little black keepers, and that one is about to be on the two little black keepers. And so just go slowly on this round, making sure that it stays down and going all the way around. Okay, so I've done my 5 rows and I'm back to the starting point, my little black needle. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the work off the machine, we're going to flip it inside out and then put it back on the machine. And then at that point we'll have to crank the opposite direction that we were cranking in. But I'll show you what all that looks like here now. Again, for me, the easiest at this point is to actually turn my machine around so that my work where I'm going to be taking the stitches off is across from me. It's just easier for me. So I ended the stitch on that last needle because that's the black one's where I started, and I'm just going to take the working end off of the machine and just lay it out of my way. Now is where you'll want your circular knitting needle if you have one. Like I said, I haven't even tried it with just your sewing needle and some waste yarn because I just have these, and I tried it and it worked out really well. And I mentioned in some of the posts on Facebook that I'm pretty clumsy at things, and so this I think helps me because the stitches when I go to put it back on just slide right up next in row, and I'm not having to fiddle with it and drop it and do all kinds of crazy things. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to advance it, and just like you were taking your work off the machine if you were done, we're just going to take it off, but we're going to put it on these circular knitting needles. So I'm going to advance it, and then when this first black stitch goes down, I'm just going to lift it off. And then this one. And I found instead of going all the way around and you know, because if you're taking off you could go all the way around and then go pick up your stitches. I drop stitches that way because again I'm clumsy, and this way the machine doesn't let me mess that up. I can only get the next stitch off, and I don't have to worry about accidentally popping off the next 2 or 3 stitches and then having to go fix them and spend all that time doing that. Got my working yarn in there, so I'm gonna back it up and get that out of there. Okay. So now we've got all of our work off of the machine, and it's held nicely on these circular needles for us. And all we're going to do is, because this is the way it was on the machine with your waste yarn on the inside, so the wrong side of the hat is what you can see on the inside of the machine, and the right side of the hat is what's outside here. So we're just going to flip it inside out. so that now you have the wrong side of the hat on the outside right here, and you're looking now, when you look down in the machine, you're looking at the right side of the hat that will be showing when you wear it. So here we're just going to put these back on the machine, and this is why I like, these circular needles, because I can just advance all of the work really easily. It slides really easily, and then I've got this hanging on for me right here. So now all I do is I just go through and I just slip each one of these on the hook. So you can see how easily that goes with this needle in my hand like this, because as I'm going, I just push the next one up and the rest follow in line. So again, we're just putting it on the hook. You don't have to worry about putting anything over the little black knobbies at the base. Just make sure all your stitches stay in that hook right there as you go along and advance, and you'll do that all the way around here. Okay, see? So now our needle's clean. We've got our work back on our machine, and we've got everything set up so all those stitches are in the little hooks on all the needles around there. You don't have anything on the little black keepers. And then, like I mentioned at the start of the video, and then again at the start of this section, one of the biggest things is you'll actually have to crank the opposite direction, because you can see the working end of the yarn is now going this way. When we started out, the working end was going that way, so when the machine went around counterclockwise, it went in line. If we kept it going counterclockwise, now we would be knitting back again, and we would have a hole right at the start of this on this row, and we don't want that. So all you have to do is get your machine in the position just like it needs to be for knitting, and then we want it to go this way on the machine, and then as you progress, you can check your progress, because you always want the right side, or the knit side facing you now moving forward as we flip, because I'll get myself backwards when I'm not paying attention and accidentally put it back on the machine with the purl side showing, and then I have to take it back off again and put it back on the right way. But at this point, at the alternating, your last set of rows before you start knitting again should always be a knit, and you'll see that when we flip it around again. But so if we were to crank the handle away from us, or a clockwise direction, the machine would turn in a counterclockwise direction and it would go backwards, which is not what we want. So we want to crank the machine towards us, and that will turn this part of the wheel in a clockwise direction. And again, just as before, you want to make sure that all of your stitches are popping down and getting on the little black keeper down there at the bottom. Okay, so it wants to kind of jump up here, and you just want to make sure that it gets pushed down so that stitch gets on the little black keeper, and the machine can have the action that it needs to have. Okay, so here we are. I've done the 6 rows now after flipping our work, so we now have these purl rows on the outside of our hat, and we're gonna take the work off and flip it back around again so that we get the knit rows. Okay, so here we are. I took the work off of the machine again. This is what we were looking at before. The right side of the hat that you would see on your head if you were wearing it, was inside of our machine. And you can see that we have all of those purl stitches. These are the knit stitches. So now what we want to do is flip it inside out again. So now we're back to the way that we started with it on the machine. Get my waste yarn out of the way, tuck it down in there. And so here it is again. This is the way it was when we first started before we flipped it out to get our purl bumps. So you see our original purl. Now we have the knit stitches that make up the purl bump stitches on the outside. So again, like I said before, you know you're doing the correct thing when you're putting it back on the machine if your previous section are knit stitches facing you. If you can see the knit stitches, you're putting it back on the machine in the correct direction. But you can also, gauge by your waste yarn. Starts on the inside, goes on the outside, goes back to the inside, and continues on like that. So we're just going to do the same thing again that we just did. Okay. So now here we are again, back with all of our stitches on our hooks all the way around. And our working yarn is now going back this way. When I turn the machine around, you'll see a little bit better. We've got our knit stitches facing us here, and then our purl, and then our waste yarn. So this is the inside of the hat. And I'm just going to flip the machine back where it's supposed to be. Okay, so now we're at the end of my 6 rows on this section now, and you can see it kind of taking shape. We've got a purl row, a knit row, a purl row on the inside of the hat here, or the wrong side of the hat. When you turn it inside out, it'll be a knit. This will be a knit row, this will be a purl row, and this will be a knit row. So we're just going to repeat the process we've just done again. Okay, so same thing we've been doing. It's just the knit, purl, knit is starting to show up now, and that's just the basic idea for the whole hat, and you just continue going that way. This is the one that I made, is kind of a slouchy version, so it sits on your head pretty nice, and this slouches down, and I think it looks nice. You could do less rows and have a tighter version if you wanted, so you could really see those rows a lot better, but for the look that I got, I did kind of a slouchy version. So we're just going to repeat that process until you have your first transition, and then 1, 2, 3 purl rows before we do our end. So you're basically going to have 3 knit sections and 3 purl sections. This one was 5 stitches, this is 6, this is 6, this is 6, or sorry, rows, 5 rows, 6 rows, 6 rows, 6 rows, 6 rows, 6 rows. And so I'm going to continue the hat in the pattern that we've been doing, just flipping inside and outside and knitting our rows until I get to this point right here, and then all we'll have to do is finish the rows for the hat out, and I'll show you that. But if you've made it to this point, then the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm still gonna go ahead and show it to you. Okay, see you back here in a minute. I've completed everything up until the last purl round. So the hat is on here. This is the outside of the hat, or the right side of the hat. The part of the hat you'll see when you're wearing it. And we've got our brim. We've got our first transition knit row, just transitioning from the brim to the pattern. And then we've got our purl row, purl section, knit section, purl section, knit section, purl section. Okay, so here we are. I've got my work put back on the machine for the final time, reversed. So now basically the way we started out, where the wrong side of the hat is what you can see on the inside of the machine. We've got all our sections done here, and we see the knits for the final purl section on the right side. So these knit stitches on the wrong side are a purl on the right side. That's this last section. We're right here. It's back on the machine. Now we're going to knit 12 rows, just like you would normally do. And this is the final home stretch of the hat. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll close it up. Gonna just advance it. My working yarn is going that way. We're going the way we originally started out when we first started the hat. And no matter how many sections you decide to make your hat, more or less sections depending on how slouchy or not slouchy you want your hat to be, you always want this to be your final row if you want to go for this, final knit look on the very top of the hat. You'll want these stitches to be knit stitches, which are purl on the opposite side, and then you'll knit continuing on. Okay, so they all went down. Now we're back like we would normally be, and we just want to continue going around for 12 rows. Now 11, that was our first row. Okay, so we're now completely done with all of our knitting that we need to do on our hat, and we're just gonna take it off the machine like you normally would and do this just gathered top up here. Everybody, if you're doing this hat, should already know the basics of that, but I'm gonna go ahead and film it just so it's here. But we're done. We're ending there. I'm just pulling off some extra yarn and cutting it there. And this time we're going to go ahead and use our needle and just put it on the end of our working yarn right here. And we're just going to take the hat off the machine. Okay, so we've gotten them all off of there now, and you'll just do gathered top for that. So just cinch it tight. And for me, what I like to do is just kind of follow the stitches around the circle again, and then I'll tie it off. I just think it makes it a little bit tighter at the top if you do it twice, and you don't risk having a hole in the top of your hat quite so much. So that's all the way around again. I left myself a little loop so I knew where I started, and I'll just pull it tight there. and then pull it tight again. So that's a good tight, thing. You really have to pull on it to get it open. So it makes it easier for you to go ahead and tie it off. And I just like to then take and go kind of around those stitches a couple of times. Before I then go to the inside of my hat and do my knot. Okay. And then just gonna bury the ends a little bit here, just in kind of a little whip stitch pattern. And I'll snip that off. And then the next thing to attend to is just getting rid of this waste yarn. But we also need to go ahead and tie off this first end where we started with our actual yarn, not our waste yarn. If you have a way that you like to tie it off when you start, then obviously you don't have to do this, but I didn't tie it off, I just kind of started it. So I don't need it in that waste yarn loop right there. So I'm just gonna tie it off here. And again, I'm just gonna bury my end with a little bit of a whip stitch across here, and then I'm gonna just take it down into my doubled over brim. Oop, thought I was gonna take it down, flipped off my needle. Take it down into my doubled over brim to hide the last part of the tail, and then clip that off. And then just gonna get rid of my waste yarn. Where are you? There you are. Okay, now that I've got it out all those loops, it'll just pull right off there. And if we did all of our stitches correctly, when we turned our brim under, they will stay and there won't be any holes in there. Okay, I'm going to turn it right side out, and there's your little hat. Done on the Addy, not the Addy, the Loops and Threads machine. I'd like to see it done on the Addy, because like I said, I'd like to see what it looks like with the few extra needles if it doesn't stretch quite as much, when you wear it. You can see how much those stitches are stretched out. For an adult, it's probably not going to bother anybody. It doesn't really bother me when I wear the hat. I just would like to see the difference. At this point, the next thing you can do to really take it from homemade to handmade is to block it, and you'll just either steam it or soak it in some warm water and then stretch it over your form, or lay it and stretch it out flat, and that just gets all these stitches right where they need to be and evens them all out and really, you know, makes it look nice. And if you want to attach a pom, you can attach a pom there. So that's it. That's how I do the hat on the loops and threads machine. And I hope the tutorial was informative for you guys and helpful and not too confusing. But turn a hat out pretty quickly. I've been doing several other things while I've been doing this tutorial, and you know, still made the hat too on top of it all. So there it is. I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments and if you'd like to see any other videos.